You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. Shady, what's good, man? Thanks for joining us.
How are you? Yes, we'll play by the rules, but
Sure, man.
I think the good thing today is when you're in no pads and you're indoors and you're doing individual drills, not a lot really happens for fans.
That is true.
Hey, look, trust me, we've been to a lot of 30-minute windows over our years. So we get it.
If there was one thing that actually came out today before practice even started, I know that Wilson and Brody and some of the other guys tweeted that Trey Bradford not on the roster. Any surprise there to you with that?
I guess I was surprised not to see him on the roster, but ultimately it's a guy who, remember, he had signed here from Texas, came after a year, had transferred out to Oklahoma, and then came right back, and that kind of caused the delay in his eligibility last year. He only appeared in the game. So I guess I'm surprised by the thought that, he was out there all of spring, so there was certainly a development in the sense of him not being out there to start fall camp or not being out there on the roster. So that's not by any mistake. And I'll say this and shift the conversation to what I think is the actual topic here, overall moving forward. I was thinking yesterday, and you can correct me and tell me what your opinion might be, but if I had to pick one player on this roster where I said, if I take that player away, they're probably a completely different team, and not for, and for the worse, I would bet it's John Emery, because I already didn't know what, Trey Bradford had played in a game. Noah Cain is transferring, Armani Goodwin's coming off a freshman year, but Corey Kiner had, already transferred out. You've got Josh Williams, who we've seen them lean on a good bit as a former walk-on, but it just seems to me like Emery is in position to be that bell cow back. And look, we've seen Brian Kelly run the ball a good bit across his career, and you would think that as they work in whatever quarterback or quarterbacks they choose to go with, that the run game is going to be pretty integral. So I think my thought, at least, of Emery being the most important becomes kind of maybe strengthened a little bit by the departure of Bradford or him not being on roster today, as you said, those guys mentioned.
I think that is a pretty compelling argument, as important as John Emery, with a ton to gain as well this year. Speaking of gaining, also when we got the roster, the updated roster, heights and weights, Harold Perkins is a guy that I think a lot of people are going to watch anyway, Shea, just when you get a 5-star linebacker and certainly at a position of need. But talking about a big guy there, man, at 220, what was he – how big was he when you were covering him in the recruiting process?
To me, remember, he was not here during the spring.
Right.
So it wasn't like we got to look at him then or anything like that. But he was here over the summer, and I saw him he was out there for summer camps and stuff like that. And I would bet, if I were to bet when he got here, he was probably 210. That's around what he was playing in that 205, 210 range in high school. So yeah, when I had seen him at summer camp, I can only imagine he's gotten, bigger across the month of July. And that's when the strength staff and them really have them and, away from the coaches and conditioning and weightlifting and all that. This is a kid that can play at 225 or, around that range. And him already being 220, I know he carries the 5-star label and all that, but even you'll see 5-star receivers or corners. Tre'Davious White and them, when those guys got here, they were skinny kids. And it took time to make them look like they do now. Harold Perkins is just showing, up to, across the course of the summer to his freshman season at 220. I think that's a good sign for, how quickly he can catch up in the film room or put it together on the field. I guess we'll see, but he's physically, put himself to be in a spot to be game ready.
Yeah, I just pulled up his recruiting profile, and he was, as a recruit, listed as 6'2", 210. So to have already put on that size is impressive. Shea, T-Bob and I were talking on Scone and T last night that, one of the things that I always look at in camp, which is always so impressionable, is there's always a freshman who, when you walk out there the first day, you hear about these guys. Maybe it's different for you because you cover a lot of these guys recruiting. But when you hear about these guys, throughout the recruiting process, then you see them in a uniform for the first time, you're like, oh my God, who is that? Patrick Peterson was that guy. Terrence Tolliver was that guy.
Daniil Hunter.
Corey Thompson was one of those guys for me as well, where we went out there the first day and I was like, who is who's the linebacker playing safety? You know, is Perkins that guy? Do you suspect anybody else physically will be that impressive?
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously just built different than a lot of kids in high school.
Yeah.
I think that's a big reason he put himself in the position to be a 5-star, number 1 overall linebacker type prospect. He was going to show up college ready. And him looking like that over the summer and now they list him at 220. He wasn't here all spring. So, I mean, obviously he's got a good bit of that already in him. I think that some of those guys we saw in the spring, like Quincy Wiggins, when you see him, you're like, that dude does not look like he is about to be a freshman in college. And I think he's young for his age. But, so, I mean, that was when you saw Will Campbell's a guy that you're just like, yeah, he doesn't look like he should still be in high school when he was out there in spring ball. So there's guys like that. I would probably put Perkins up there near the top of the list. But Wiggins right there with him. Quincy Wiggins is up there with him.
By the way, have you seen him in the offseason we heard of Quincy was, through spring, but when he got hit by a car in San Antonio, that video that came out, which was just insane, but all things seem okay there?
Oh, yeah, no, I think
Crazy.
he was it was because that happened in January, and then he was back out there all spring. So, when did that happen? I thought it was in January.
That was in San Antonio at the
All-Star
All-American
game Bowl. So that would have been in January. Yeah, he was out there all spring. Yeah, no, I don't think wildly enough, and I know maybe people who haven't seen the video can't grasp completely what we're talking about, but it was nuts. I mean, it was a super scary situation, and I'm pretty sure he walked it off and broke, maybe something in his wrist or something. It was out of a cast in a month or something like that.
Yeah, just bonkers. He's on Twitter at Shea Dixon. We were talking about putting on weight. That was such a storyline for Miles Brennan through the early part of his career. Clearly that's beyond. Now it's just a question of, if he can win the starting quarterback job. Shea, we've seen a couple of these quarterback battles in the past. I've said that I believe it. I believe it's a legitimate quarterback battle. I don't think this coaching staff knows who is going to take the first snap of the first game. Where do you stand on that?
I'm completely with you. And I don't think there is any advantage gained. I don't think Kelly and them would be saying, oh, we know who the quarterback is, but we don't want the public or our opponents to know, or, whatever the approach might be, and we're going to keep it quiet and we're going to divvy up the reps. They would just be giving somebody almost all the reps and getting them ready to run the offense. And our understanding, at least, and we'll hear from Kelly tonight here shortly, but what he has said all offseason, whether it was Rotary clubs or, to the media in the spring or whatever it was, the SEC media days, it was, we're going into fall camp trying to decide who the quarterback is. 3 guys are going to get a shot, and soon into fall camp, we don't know his timetable or maybe his hopeful timetable. They'll start to narrow down the reps and kind of divvy them up not so evenly, and maybe one guy steps forward. But I firmly believe right now that they might have an inclination of a guy who has the lead or something like that, but I don't think they've picked the starting quarterback.
Do you, if I asked you to guesstimate today, if I said, Shea, or you got to go put a wager down, who takes the first snap? You have a guess?
I mean, I would take whatever the best odds were. So that's probably maybe Brennan. I know that Daniels has the most experience. Nuss is the guy that kind of. Here's my thing: if you've really convinced, I think the bigger question is which maybe you seem to have. Is it a 3? Is this really a 3 quarterback race?
I think so. Do you?
I do. Yeah. I'm not completely convinced 2 quarterbacks won't play. Not maybe a pure system in that regard, but I don't. I could see. I don't know if it's like a Flynn Perilou type thing, but something along those lines. I guess it just depends on who wins the job.
I completely agree with you, and I don't know that it's consistent enough throughout the year that we only see one guy, but I guess we'll all wait and see in time. He's on Twitter at Shea Dixon. Shea, before you go, there is some significant recruiting news. Jayden Osberry in 45 minutes or so from right now is set to make his announcement. Did I get that time right? 6:15. It's sometime after 6 p.m. Central Time here. Jayden Osberry is going to make his announcement. It seems like it's going to be Notre Dame. Is that the feeling?
Yeah, I mean, that's where everybody's crystal balls and predictions are in on, and really have been for some time. I think that we've talked about this plenty about, and I think he's kind of the ultimate guy. If you open up the dictionary of when you high guys can kind of go wrong for you, he's been here his entire life on campus. His dad works at the university. He's, if you go to basketball games and all that, you saw Jayden and Austin growing up. I mean, they were at every event hanging out. I think he viewed the recruiting process, and his brother went to Auburn as, hey, this is a chance for us to go out and experience something different. And LSU was going through coaching changes at the time, and I think he kind of liked what he saw early on the trips with Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman. That staff's kind of stuck with it. And, yeah, that's where everybody's predicting him to go.
It is. I know there's sort of this general feeling of the local kids in Louisiana that are getting away, but some of these circumstantially, you understand why it's gone the way that it has. On Saturday, Shelton Sampson is going to make his announcement at Catholic High. Shea, I also get two different vibes here. I get some people who seem dead set that he's going to pick the Tigers, and then there's also this feeling that from some close to him that maybe he wants to leave home and not stay in Baton Rouge. What can you tell us about the Shelton Sampson situation?
I think Shelton's done a good job of keeping things kind of to himself. He doesn't, you're around that Catholic program, he doesn't talk a bunch about, he's not all out there in the media. He's not, kind of caught up in the recruiting process. It was very, I keep to myself. I went through it. I, kind of put my team first, and I'm sure that's the Bear mentality, Matt, if he's kind of following along on the team first mentality.
I've heard that.
He's good at it. So I think everybody's kind of in the end like, where is he going? But I think the job LSU's done recruiting him, both through the prior staff and this one, there was no real let up. It's been made clear for a long time that he was such a priority for this recruiting cycle and this team and the program. And I just don't think you can overlook either the reality of just how successful these young guys. I mean, we can skip over the Odells and Jarvises and just say Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. I mean, these guys are dominating the league in the NFL. It just won a national championship, and that was kind of in the prime of when Shelton's in high school and seeing that. And LSU's kind of considered wide receiver U almost in a way with all the different guys they have across the league. So that pitch, I think, is big. And then we've started to see so many dominoes drop in Louisiana of kids starting to get on board. And there was kind of the trending hashtag Shelton stays, and even the team was doing it. So I think he's seen kind of how much a priority LSU's made him. And I don't think any other schools have been able to, is even in a position to be able to match that.
What about one more, Shea? What about Kylan Jackson?
Yeah, he announces on Monday, another local kid that's, there's a bunch of dominoes dropping here for the greater Baton Rouge area, but coming out of Zachary, he'll make his, I don't know what time it is, but it's on Monday. It's on the 8th. And he's got, it's like A&M, LSU, a couple of teams in the mix, but I think everyone is thinking it's LSU, feeling like it's LSU because they've really buckled in across the spring and into the summer and getting him on campus and kind of letting him know where he fits in and certainly that he's a priority. And it seems like him shutting it down before his senior season, he's ready to go with the decision. And there wasn't, A&M flirted around early, but there wasn't ever kind of a feeling that he was deadlocked there and they were doing so much to win beat out all the other teams in his recruitment. So I think this new LSU staff has certainly done enough to grab his commitment. And again, whether it's the crystal ball or the recruiting machine, whatever predictions you're looking at, kind of are all starting to sit on LSU as we inch closer to his decision happening.
He is Shea Dixon on Twitter at Shea Dixon. All right, Shea. I assume when are we gonna know what is next for you in life?
Before the football season.
Okay, we're getting close, huh?
Not now, yeah. Not right now. I still have time to hang out with you on the radio and
I love it.
Lollygag around. So not quite yet, but
I love
eventually.
It, man. I love it. Hey, thanks so much for a couple of minutes as always, man. We appreciate it. You're welcome here anytime.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.